Stop everything and listen. Because this isn't another video, this is the moment your entire vibrational timeline has been building toward. You were not drawn here by curiosity or chance, you were summoned. And if you've made it this far, it means the universe has identified you as one of the very few who are still capable of remembering who they really are. Not the name you were given, not the story you were told, but the ancient spark buried beneath it all. The same spark, Thoth himself encoded with the power to unlock divine prosperity. And here's the truth. That code has an expiration date. Right now, your life may feel like it's moving forward, but something unseen is holding you back, like trying to run while dragging invisible chains. You felt it, the frustration, the limitation, the strange resistance that doesn't match your effort. That's because your system was programmed to keep you small long before you had the chance to choose otherwise. But the reason you're still breathing is because you haven't missed your window yet. Thoth's last transmission wasn't sent to the masses, it was meant for the Real Chosen. And if you're still here, it's because you're one of them. So listen closely. This message carries a secret that has been hidden for centuries. A vibrational key designed to break patterns of scarcity, dissolve the false identity, and awaken the prosperity field that was always yours. But it only activates through presence, through attention, through agreement. And that's why you must take action right now, not tomorrow, not later. Comment, "I'm ready to break the code and subscribe as a spiritual contract, not with me, but with your higher self. Because the door is open, and what waits beyond it will demand everything from you, but give you back even more. Now breathe in. We're going in." You've spent years trying to fix things on the surface, changing jobs, relationships, cities, behaviors, but something always felt incomplete. As if no matter what you achieved, a part of you remained untouched. What you didn't realize is that the ache you've been carrying wasn't a flaw in your journey. It was the compass. That restlessness, that quiet sadness, that constant inner battle was never random. It was the vibration of a soul that remembered it came here for more. You've been living inside a story that was never fully yours. A version of reality shaped by other people's fears, their limitations, their beliefs. From childhood, you were conditioned to shrink, to stay safe, to avoid standing out, to trade authenticity for approval. And yet, something inside you kept whispering. Even at your lowest, even when it would have been easier to give up, something sacred kept pulling you forward. That something is your true identity trying to break through. Not the version of you that learned to survive, but the one who came here to awaken. Every hardship you faced, every time life broke you open, wasn't punishment. It was precision. You weren't being crushed. You were being carved, prepared, aligned. Because only the ones who've tasted the darkness can carry the light with humility. And you didn't endure for nothing. The pain refined your vision. The isolation sharpened your hearing. You didn't lose your way. You were being rerouted toward the truth of who you are, a chosen one, encoded with the remembrance of divine power, here to restore what the world forgot. There is a reason this message found you now and not before. Because the key you're about to receive was never meant for the masses. It was reserved for the few who had already endured enough to be trusted with the truth. Thoth's final transmission is not a myth, not a metaphor. It is a vibrational sequence capable of collapsing centuries of scarcity, guilt, and limitation, but only when received by a mind that is finally awake and a heart that is finally ready. This isn't about information, it's about transformation, not about adding something new, but dissolving everything that was never really you. You've been operating on frequencies that don't belong to your essence, trapped in cycles you inherited, repeating patterns that began generations before you were even born. But once this code is activated, the flow begins to return. Doors that never opened before will respond to you. People, ideas, resources. They'll start arriving without resistance. Why? Because the signal you emit will finally match the truth of who you are. And that's what you're about to learn. How to release the energetic weight that distorts your vibration and realign with the frequency of divine prosperity. This is not wishful thinking, it's resonance. But the key will only unlock if you choose to engage. If you sense that this message was meant for you, then declare it into the field. Comment below, "I carry Thoth's code." Let the universe hear your readiness through your words. The system responds not to hesitation, but to certainty. You've arrived at the edge. What comes next changes everything. You've been trying to move forward, to grow, to evolve, but it feels like something keeps pulling you back. And the truth is, something is. Not a curse, not bad luck, but a pattern so old, so normalized, that you no longer see it. This isn't about laziness, lack of discipline, or even fear of success. This is about programming, deep, unconscious coding installed in your system long before you had the power to choose for yourself. From the earliest years, your mind was shaped by people who were already trapped, parents who believed life had to be hard, teachers who repeated limitation like scripture, friends who taught you to expect less so you wouldn't be disappointed. And without even realizing it, you adopted their truths as your own. Money is scarce. Joy is rare. Dreams are dangerous. These weren't just phrases, and they became frequencies, and you've been broadcasting them ever since. Like a living antenna, you send out vibration with every thought, every expectation, every silent belief. And the universe, in perfect obedience, mirrors that signal back to you, not to punish you, but to reflect what you're unconsciously projecting. That's why no matter how much effort you pour into change, something feels blocked, because your vibration is still entangled with a frequency that isn't yours, a frequency rooted in survival, not expansion, in control, not truth. And this is the first veil that must fall, the belief that what you see around you is just the way things are. It's not. It's the residue of an old system, one that was never designed for your liberation. The question is, will you keep repeating what you inherited, or will you be the first to break free? There's a reason you keep circling back to the same places, the same financial ceilings, the same emotional walls, the same quiet frustration of feeling like you're meant for more, but unable to reach it. That reason is not weakness, it's not fate. It's a self-perpetuating energetic loop, a cycle that lives inside you, sustained by emotions so familiar you no longer question them. It starts small, a thought, a hesitation, a voice in your head whispering, "That's too much. Don't risk it, you're not ready." And because you've heard it so many times, you believe it's your voice. But it's not. It's an echo, a remnant of every moment you were told to be realistic, to stay safe, to settle. And the more you listen, the more your body adapts. You hold back your desires. You shrink your goals. You dim your light, not out of fear of failure, but out of habit. This is the real danger, when the pattern becomes normal. When you turn down compliments without thinking. When you downplay your wins because you don't want to make others uncomfortable. When you apologize for wanting more, even if you never say it out loud. These aren't just moments. They are codes, commands, silent agreements with an outdated version of reality. And with every repetition, the cycle tightens. Fear doesn't always show up as panic. Sometimes it looks like logic, responsibility, caution. But its job is always the same: to keep you where it's safe, even if it's suffocating. And unless you interrupt the cycle at its energetic core, you'll keep rearranging the furniture inside the same locked room. But what if the walls were never real? What if the loop continues only because no one ever dared to question it? You were never meant to stay small on your own. You were trained to, and the training began long before you had language to resist it. Because what you're trapped in isn't just a personal struggle, it's a carefully designed system. One that has perfected the art of making you control yourself, of making you shrink without force, obey without chains, limit yourself before anyone else even asks you to. It began with fear, not the loud kind that screams, but the quiet one that whispers beneath everything. Don't speak too loud, don't aim too high, don't break the pattern. Fear disguised as discipline, as morality, as belonging. You were taught that to be loved, you had to conform, that to be accepted, you had to sacrifice your truth. And so you did, little by little, silencing your voice, dimming your presence, numbing your intuition. The system that raised you didn't need bars. It just needed you to believe that stepping out of line would cost you everything. And so they gave you warnings wrapped in religion, guilt wrapped in tradition, shame hidden in the language of good behavior. You heard it everywhere. Be careful. Don't question. Stay where you belong. And over time, those messages embedded themselves into your nervous system, becoming reflexes. You began to scan every room, every relationship, every opportunity through the lens of risk, not truth. But here's the twist. The system doesn't sustain itself through violence. It sustains itself because you started doing its work for it. You criticize yourself before others can. You abandon your dreams before anyone else can reject them. You self-regulate so efficiently that the prison doesn't need guards, because the guard is now inside of you. And that's why it's so hard to break, not because the door is locked, but because you were taught to never walk toward it. There comes a moment, often quiet, sometimes terrifying, when the cycle no longer holds. Not because the system gave way, but because you stopped agreeing with it. Something shifts. A breath lands differently. A thought rises from a deeper place. And suddenly you feel it. The first crack in the wall. A subtle fissure in the false identity you've carried for too long. This is not about a breakthrough with fireworks. It's about an awakening so subtle that most miss it. But not you. That shift you've been sensing, the one you couldn't explain but couldn't ignore, is the breath of awakening. It's the moment your inner being remembers what it truly is. Not a role, not a resume, not a reflection of past pain, but a fragment of divine intelligence vibrating in a temporary human form. And in that remembering, everything begins to change. Not all at once, but in waves, gentle, undeniable waves that start rewriting your reality from the inside out. You stop asking for permission. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop waiting for someone to rescue you, because you realize you were never lost, just distracted. Distracted by fear, distracted by stories, distracted by a world that taught you to forget your own light. But now that light is flickering again. And even if the flame is small, it's real. And real light, once seen, can't be unseen. You don't need to destroy everything to begin again. You just need to stop building on the lies. Because when you remember who you are, you start to see clearly who you've never been. This is where remembrance becomes movement. Because awakening alone is not enough. It must lead to action. And not any action, but one aligned with your true frequency. That's where Thoth's code enters. Not as ancient myth or esoteric concept, but as a living vibration ready to reconfigure your reality. This teaching was not designed for the curious. It was reserved for the courageous. For the ones willing to shed their false selves and step into alignment with the divine order of abundance. Prosperity is not something you chase, it's something you align with. It doesn't respond to need, it responds to resonance. And Most people live their lives asking for abundance while vibrating in fear, guilt, and lack. It's like trying to tune into a symphony with a broken antenna. The music is always playing, but if your frequency is blocked, you'll never hear it. That's why no matter how much you want change, if your emotional field is still tethered to limitation, the signal can't get through. Thoth's code was never meant to teach you how to get rich. It was designed to remind you that you are the source, that the river of flow has always run through you, but your beliefs dammed it up. The moment you start to question every inherited truth, every voice that told you you can't, you don't deserve, you're not enough, the water begins to move again. Slowly at first, then powerfully. And with that movement, synchronicities increase. People show up, resources appear, peace settles in. Not because of magic, but because of match. This is not philosophy. It is spiritual mechanics. Energy follows attention. Attention forms belief. Belief emits frequency. Frequency shapes reality. And now, your internal system is being rewired to emit something entirely new: truth, expansion, power, because you were never meant to beg for prosperity. You were meant to embody it. Now that the river of abundance has begun to flow again, you must understand something crucial. The world around you will try to pull you back, not because it is evil, but because it is asleep. Most people have learned to survive in chaos, and when you step out of that chaos, they don't see freedom, they see danger. To them, your light is uncomfortable, your alignment is suspicious, your silence is threatening. And if you are not aware, you will absorb all of it and mistake it for your own. That's why spiritual protection is not optional. It's sacred maintenance. Your energy is not infinite. Your field can be drained. And every time you engage in gossip, comparison, or emotional chaos, you leak power. Little by little, the clarity you cultivated becomes foggy. Your intuition gets quiet. Your frequency lowers. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your attention has been hijacked. Thoth's teaching was clear. Protect your resonance like sacred fire. Build internal filters. Ask, does this nourish my light or drain my frequency? Practice silence. Disconnect to reconnect. Protect your peace like it's the source of your wealth, because it is. And remember, you don't need to isolate yourself from the world. You only need to stop letting the world enter you. Alignment is a choice you make over and over again, moment by moment, thought by thought, breath by breath. This is the art of holding your power. Awakening was never meant to be a solo journey. You didn't come to this earth just to fix your life, achieve your goals, or manifest your dreams in isolation. You came here to shift the field, to radiate light into places where darkness became normalized, to walk into rooms and elevate the vibration without even speaking. You were sent as a ripple maker, a frequency changer, and this is the part most people miss. Your inner transformation changes the collective field. Every time you break an inherited pattern, you give others silent permission to do the same. Every time you choose peace over reaction or compassion over judgment, you are cleansing more than your story. You're healing ancestral frequencies that have echoed for centuries. When Thoth whispered the ancient truths, he wasn't speaking to the ego. He was calling the soul into remembrance. You were chosen not because you are better. You were chosen because you chose to listen. You are not just healing for yourself. You are healing for those who couldn't, for those who came before you, and those who are yet to come. That is why your journey matters more than you realize. Every light that rises becomes a beacon for others still lost in the fog. You are not alone. You are a link in the chain of awakening. So take this moment to feel the weight of your presence, the sacred responsibility that comes with remembering who you are, not as a burden, but as a gift. If you made it this far, it's not by chance. These words didn't find you. You were pulled to them. Because something ancient inside you is stirring, remembering. What Thoth revealed was never meant for the masses. It was encoded for the ready, for the real chosen, those willing to rise beyond the illusion, to break the inherited patterns and reclaim the truth. You were never broken. You were only asleep. Now, you're waking up. And with that awakening comes the greatest gift, choice. You can choose to ignore this. You can choose to fall back asleep. But if even a small flame was lit inside your spirit today, then something has already shifted. You've crossed a vibrational threshold. From here on, you are no longer walking blind. You are remembering how to move with intention, how to speak with energy, how to shape the field around you with nothing but your presence. So honor this moment. Seal this shift with a symbolic act. Comment below, "I claim my divine remembrance." Like this message if you felt the call. Subscribe, and every word you receive will only take you deeper. This is not the end. It's the return to everything you were meant to be. You are not just a seeker. You are a signal, a messenger, a mirror of the Creator, walking this earth. And we will meet again, beyond the illusion, beyond the noise, in that sacred space, beyond the awakening, with infinite light. See you soon.